Lesson 98, solving quadratics by factoring. Okay, so when we talk about the root of an equation, that just is another name for the solution of an equation. So if someone says, what are the roots to this equation? They're just wanting to know what's the solution. Now the root of a quadratic equation are your x-intercepts, or the solutions when y equals 0. So the root of a quadratic equation are the x-intercepts. And sometimes we call those the zeros. It's when y equals 0, what does x equal? Now we have a property that we're going to add to our list of properties. It's called the zero product property. That just says any number times 0 is going to equal 0. So if we had two factors, x minus 3 times x minus 8 was equal to 0. We knew it was equal to 0. By the zero product property, we know that either x minus 3 has to be 0 or x minus 8 has to be 0. Because the only way to get 0 is to multiply by 0. So we're going to say, well, x minus 3 equals 0 or x minus 8 equals 0. If we solve for x, here we'd add 3, so x is 3, or x, here we'd have to add 8, is 8. So our solution is x equals, and if you put it in braces, it shows that it's a set. The set of these two numbers, 3 and 8. Sometimes we're given an example or a problem that does not have it factored, and we need to do the factoring. So let's find the solution. So solve for x. So I'm going to add the 5x to the other side and write this quadratic in standard form. Then I'm going to factor it. I have my x and my x. I want two numbers that multiply to 6. So we want to multiply to 6 and add to 5. So 3 times 2 is 6, 3 plus 2 is 5, so I'm going to put my plus 3 plus 2. Now I'm still solving. I want to know what x is, so I'm going to say, well, x plus 3 has to be 0, or x plus 2 has to be 0 by the zero product property. Subtract 3, subtract 2. So I get x equals negative 3, or x equals 2, and we can write it as, negative 2, we can write it as a set, which means in braces, negative 3 and negative 2. Here's another example. 3x squared equals 4x plus 7. So, if I make this side 0 and I subtract a 3x squared from both sides, I get a negative 3x squared plus 4x plus 7 equals 0. Then I'm going to take out a negative 1 so that I have 3x squared minus 4x minus 7, and then I can factor. So I have, well, before I do, I'm going to divide by negative 1. That'll get rid of that negative 1. And I factor, I'm going to have a 3x here, an x here. What if I did 7 and 1? Yep, because 7 minus 3 is 4, so I'm going to make my 7 a negative. My 1 positive, oh, I'll just put my equal 0 over there, so 3x minus 7 equals 0, or x plus 1 equals 0. I'm going to add 7, so 3x equals 7, divide by 3, or, and in this case I'm going to subtract 1. So my solutions is negative 1 and 7/3. And that's the end of the lesson.